Imagine standing on the deck of a wooden ship in the year 1521. The vessel is 60 feet long. The nearest landmass is more than 2,000 miles away in every direction. You have no radio. You have no satellite. You have no electronic beacon that can summon rescue. The charts you carry are rough sketches based on rumors from traders who themselves never sailed these waters. The stars above you are your only reference points, but clouds have covered them for 3 nights. Your fresh water will last perhaps 12 days if rationed carefully. And the ocean around you extends to every horizon, featureless and vast beyond comprehension. By every measure we apply in the modern world, you should be dead within weeks. You should become one of the countless unnamed sailors who simply vanished, whose ships were found centuries later as skeletal wrecks on distant reefs, or never found at all. The mathematics of your situation are brutal. The probability of reaching your destination approaches 0. And yet, explorers reached their destinations. Not always, not all of them, but far more consistently than random chance would allow. Magellan's expedition circumnavigated the globe. Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific to find islands that appear as specks against the immensity of that ocean. Saharan caravans traversed featureless desert for months. Arctic expeditions survived polar winters in conditions that would kill an unprepared person in hours. Something systematic was happening, something that modern audiences have completely forgotten how to see. The popular imagination has constructed a mythology around exploration that bears no resemblance to historical reality. We imagine explorers as solitary heroes, individuals of extraordinary will who ventured into the unknown armed with courage, instinct, and perhaps a compass. The cinematic image of the lone figure consulting a weathered map, squinting at the horizon, making bold decisions through sheer intuition, this is fiction. What we see in films is the explorer as protagonist, as individual genius, as someone whose personal qualities determine the outcome. Bravery conquers fear, determination overcomes obstacles. This narrative satisfies our preference for stories about exceptional individuals, but it obscures the actual mechanisms that made survival possible. The reality contained in historical records presents an entirely different picture. When researchers examine journals, ship logs, expedition accounts, and archaeological evidence, they find something unexpected. They do not find tales of individual heroism. They find descriptions of systems. They find elaborate protocols. They find social architectures designed to accomplish a single goal: preventing catastrophic failure. Consider what is consistently absent from these records. We do not find explorers relying on technological solutions that did not exist. What we find instead is a pattern of organization so thorough that it functioned as a replacement for technology itself. The excavation of exploration-era vessels reveals this pattern materially. Ships that survived long voyages show evidence of specific crew arrangements, redundant supply systems, and careful documentation procedures. The Vasa, a Swedish warship that sank in 1628 and was recovered nearly intact, provides direct archaeological evidence of how crews organized themselves. Personal effects found with remains indicate distinct social hierarchies, specialized roles, and systematic distribution of resources. This was not a collection of individuals. This was an engineered social organism. The journals of expeditions confirm this through textual evidence. When Matthew Flinders circumnavigated Australia, his logs reveal not bold improvisational decisions, but meticulous adherence to established protocols. Water rationing followed precise schedules. Crew responsibilities rotated according to predetermined systems. Navigation duties were distributed among multiple officers who cross-checked calculations. This points to the first element of the hidden survival system: social structure as survival technology. Exploration-era expeditions were hierarchical societies in miniature, with rules, roles, and relationships governing every aspect of behavior. These hierarchies were not primarily about power. They were about eliminating ambiguity in moments of crisis. When disaster struck, there could be no debate about who made decisions, who followed orders, who performed which tasks. Ambiguity cost lives. Clarity saved them. The second element was behavioral protocol. Explorers operated according to scripts, developed, tested, and refined across generations. These were transmitted through apprenticeship, through oral tradition, through the lived experience of serving on multiple voyages before commanding one. A captain facing crisis was not inventing solutions. He was selecting from established responses proven effective in similar situations. The Polynesian navigators who crossed the Pacific exemplify this principle. Their navigation techniques relied on systematic observation of natural phenomena, wave patterns, bird behavior, cloud formations, star positions. But critically, these observations followed structured protocols. Young navigators spent years learning to recognize specific configurations and respond in specific ways. This was not intuition. This was applied knowledge transmitted through rigorous training. The third element was redundancy through people, not technology. Critical skills were distributed across multiple individuals. If the primary navigator fell ill, others assumed navigation duties. If the expedition leader died, clear succession protocols determined command. The Lewis and Clark expedition maintained multiple journals because losing any single document would mean losing the expedition's entire scientific value. The fourth element was environmental adaptation. Explorers did not simply endure harsh environments. They incorporated environmental knowledge into operational protocols. The Tuareg caravans crossing the Sahara organized movements around the desert's rhythms, traveling at night, resting during hottest hours, following routes connecting reliable water sources. Survival depended not on overcoming the environment, but on conforming to it. The Inuit peoples demonstrate this in refined form. European polar explorers who imposed their own methods on the Arctic frequently died. Those who survived adopted Inuit techniques, clothing designs managing temperature, shelter construction using snow as insulation, hunting methods providing food in apparently barren landscapes. The Inuit had spent thousands of years developing comprehensive Arctic survival systems. Successful Europeans incorporated those systems. When we examine exploration across different environments, oceanic, desert, polar, jungle, we find the same underlying logic. The specific practices vary enormously. The structural principles remain constant. Hierarchical organization, behavioral protocols, human redundancy, environmental adaptation. Whether crossing water or sand or ice, these elements appeared consistently. Arab merchants establishing Indian Ocean trade routes operated according to systems strikingly similar to European maritime powers. Monsoon patterns dictated sailing schedules. Crew hierarchies followed established models. The technology differed. The organizational architecture was parallel. Silk Road caravans exhibited identical patterns terrestrially. Large trading expeditions functioned as mobile societies with defined leadership, specialized roles, and elaborate protocols for managing bandits, weather, and disease. These were organized systems designed to ensure some portion would reach destination, regardless of obstacles. Modern confirmation comes from experimental archaeology. In 1976, the Hokulea, a double-hulled canoe built to traditional Polynesian designs, sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti using traditional navigation, no instruments, no charts. A navigator trained in traditional methods read ocean and sky using ancestral approaches. The voyage succeeded because the navigation system worked. It had always worked. We had simply forgotten such systems were possible. Similar reconstructions have demonstrated Viking navigation techniques, medieval sailing protocols, and traditional caravan organization. In each case, researchers discovered historical methods were not primitive approximations of modern technology. They were sophisticated systems optimized for specific conditions. This brings us to an element expedition journals emphasize repeatedly: the psychological dimension. Exploration-era leaders devoted substantial attention to morale, ritual, and routine maintenance. This was not secondary. This was directly essential to survival. The human mind does not function well under uncertainty and isolation. Fear accumulates. Anxiety disrupts judgment. Depression reduces will. Exploration-era leaders developed systematic approaches to psychological management, functioning as survival technology. Religious observance served this purpose regardless of personal devotion. Regular services imposed routine on formless time. Collective prayer reinforced group identity. Commanders who questioned theological doctrines enforced religious practice because they understood its practical function. Beyond religion, expeditions maintained elaborate schedules of duties, meals, rest, and recreation. The human mind requires structure. In environments where external reference points vanished, imposed routine provided structure that reality could not supply. Social cohesion itself functioned as survival technology. Human beings are social organisms. Isolation kills through psychological deterioration accompanying disconnection. Expeditions cultivated group identity through shared hardship, ritualized celebration, and narrative construction, giving journeys meaning beyond mere travel. The Franklin expedition illustrates this through failure. Despite possessing the most advanced polar technology of its era, Franklin's crews perished. Archaeological investigation reveals progressive breakdown of social and psychological systems. Evidence suggests leadership structures collapsed, behavioral protocols were abandoned, and psychological states deteriorated until rational decision-making became impossible. Technology could not save them because technology had never been the primary survival determinant. What we confront is a profound challenge to modern assumptions. We believe technology makes survival possible. We carry devices summoning rescue from anywhere on Earth. We rely on electronic systems for navigation, communication, and virtually every interaction with the physical world. We assume these represent essential survival tools. The historical record demonstrates this assumption is false. For most of human history, people navigated and survived using systems having nothing to do with electronic technology. Those systems were based on social organization, transmitted knowledge, psychological management, and environmental adaptation. They were not primitive forerunners of modern methods. They were parallel solutions optimized for different constraints. The explorers who crossed oceans without charts, who traversed deserts without compasses, who survived polar winters without electronic communication, these individuals did not possess superior courage or exceptional luck. They possessed systems designed to maximize survival probability by distributing risk, maintaining psychological stability, and adapting behavior to environmental conditions. When we imagine them as solitary heroes conquering nature through force of will, we fundamentally misunderstand their accomplishment. They did not conquer nature. They recognized nature could not be conquered. Instead, they redesigned themselves, their social structures, behaviors, psychological frameworks, and environmental relationships to exist within nature's constraints rather than against them. This represents intelligence that modern society has largely abandoned. We have externalized survival onto devices. We have substituted equipment for adaptation. We have forgotten that the most sophisticated survival technology ever developed is not electronic. It is human. It resides in the organization of groups, the transmission of knowledge, the management of minds, and the willingness to shape ourselves according to demands of the world we inhabit. The explorers who returned from the unknown carried this understanding within them. They had learned through extremity what their societies subsequently forgot in comfort: that survival is not conquest, it is negotiation. And the terms of that negotiation are set not by our tools, but by our willingness to become beings who can exist within conditions we did not choose and cannot change. That knowledge has not become obsolete. We have merely stopped knowing that we need it.